This is the 8 Digital Podcast, and today we're covering a disaster that's shaken Texas to its core. Flash floods have torn through the U.S. state of Texas. Dozens are dead.
So many.
Many, including children from a summer camp, are still missing. Warnings were issued. But in too many places, they weren't heard.
No sirens.
No alerts. Just silence. Now the blame game begins. Years of funding cuts to FEMA, NOAA, and state-level preparedness are under fire. Could this have been prevented? We break down what went wrong and what it says about America's readiness for such disasters. Okay, let's try to unpack this. As we get into it, the human cost, it's really hard to grasp. Can you start us off with the immediate impact, the numbers?
Yeah, it's an immense tragedy, truly. The numbers we have right now, at least 82 confirmed deaths.
82.
And on top of that, 41 people still missing across the state.
Still missing.
And the focus, really, the epicenter is Kerr County. That's where 68 of those fatalities occurred.
Wow.
And the most heartbreaking part, 28 of those were children.
Oh, that's devastating.
It is. A lot of the attention is on Camp Mystic. It's a Christian summer camp for girls right there on the Guadalupe River.
Okay.
10 girls and a counselor from the camp are still missing. And the director, Richard Eastland, Dick Eastland, he ran it for years.
Yeah.
He's also among the dead.
Just awful. And the timing of it all?
The timing was brutal. The Guadalupe River, normally pretty calm, right?
Yeah.
It surged, rose 26 feet.
26 feet.
In just 45 minutes before dawn on Friday. So most people, campers included, they were asleep, caught completely unaware.
And you hear these personal stories. They really bring home how fast and just how deadly this water was. Like Julian Ryan in Ingram.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Water rushes in, he punches through a window to get his family out, his fiancée, kids, his mom.
Incredible bravery.
But he cut an artery doing it and died. His fiancée, Christina Wilson, she remembered his last words. "I'm sorry, I'm not going to make it. I love y'all." It's just gut-wrenching.
Absolutely gut-wrenching.
Or Erin Burgess, also in Ingram. Water pouring into her home in minutes. She and her 19-year-old son ended up clinging to a tree for an hour.
An hour.
She said she wouldn't have made it without him, that his height basically kept her head above water.
Wow.
And then there's Emma Foltz, a counselor at Camp Mystic from Louisiana, managed to get 14 campers to safety amidst all that chaos.
Amazing presence of mind. When you're talking minutes, maybe seconds, to react,
Yeah.
how do first responders even begin to deal with that immediate chaos?
That's it, isn't it? The speed is the killer. Initial survival often comes down to pure instinct, individual action right then and there.
Right.
For the emergency crews, it quickly goes from trying to prevent anything worse to just frantic rescue and then, unfortunately, recovery.
And it's important, I think, to name some of those still missing or lost, to remember they're real people. From Camp Mystic, girls like Greta Toronzo and Hadley Hanna.
Young girls.
Yeah. Grandparents Mike and Charlene Harbor, they're missing. Their granddaughters, Brooke and Blair, they were found. They didn't make it. And from the HTR campground nearby, Robert and Janie Brake, Rob and Melissa Kameen, also still unaccounted for.
And the search now. It's shifted, hasn't it? Mostly recovery, not rescue.
Sadly, yes. That's the reality now. It's incredibly somber work.
They've rescued over 850 people, which is, I mean, that's remarkable. Hats off to the first responders, the volunteers.
Absolutely heroic efforts.
But the conditions for the search teams now, thick mud, debris everywhere. And I even read reports about venomous snakes in the flood areas.
Yeah, that's another danger they face. It complicates everything. It's just an almost unimaginable scene down there.
So moving from the human tragedy to what caused it. You described it as a meteorological perfect storm. Can you break that down?
Sure. There really was a combination of factors. It started, believe it or not, with Tropical Storm Barry, way down in Mexico.
Like dissipated, right?
It did, but it left behind this deep plume of tropical moisture, just incredibly humid air. And that moisture got pulled north, right into Texas. Then you had this compact low-pressure system. We call it a mesoscale convective vortex, an MCV. Basically, a cluster of thunderstorms that spins and sustains itself.
Right.
And this MCV just stalled, sat right over central Texas.
Okay.
Exactly. So you had the MCV generating storms and this endless supply of tropical moisture feeding them. That led to what we call training thunderstorms.
Training, like a train.
Precisely. Imagine train cars passing over the same spot on a track. These storms kept forming and dumping rain over the exact same areas again and again.
Relentless.
Relentless. The rainfall totals are insane. Over a foot around Kerrville and Fredericksburg. Some spots south of Brady got nearly 2 feet of rain.
2 feet in such a short time.
Yeah, just an incredible amount of water.
And thinking about those training storms, that volume of rain, it makes you think about the area itself. Central Texas has this reputation, this nickname.
Flash flood alley.
Right, flash flood alley. What is it about that specific geography that makes these floods so catastrophic? Does that danger complicate how warnings work, how people respond?
It absolutely does. And that's really where you see the systemic challenge, I think. Flash flood alley isn't just a kitschy name.
Yeah.
It's reality. You've got steep hills, rocky terrain that doesn't soak up water well, very shallow soil. So when you get these intense downpours, the water has nowhere to go but downhill fast.
Straight into the creeks and rivers.
Exactly. All those creeks, the ravines, the streams, they all funnel directly into the Guadalupe River, and it happens incredibly quickly.
So very little warning time, naturally.
Very little. That Guadalupe River gauge at Hunt, it showed the river rising 22 feet in just 2 hours.
22 feet in 2 hours.
Before the gauge itself was overwhelmed and stopped reporting. And remember, major flood stage there is 20 feet, so it went from below flood stage to major flood in maybe a couple of hours. The window for people to react is just tiny.
And Texas knows floods.
Oh, absolutely. It's a long, painful history. Every single county in Texas, all 254 of them, has had a federal flood disaster declaration at some point.
Every single one.
And something like 17% of Texans live or work in areas with significant flood risk. This isn't a new problem for the state.
We've seen it before in that area, too, right?
Definitely. The 2015 Wimberley flood killed 13 people not far from there. Kerrville itself had major floods in 07-02 back in 1987.
And Hurricane Harvey, of course.
Harvey in 2017. Over $125 billion in damage statewide. Texas is unfortunately very familiar with catastrophic water events.
So if the region is known for this danger, and the meteorologists were tracking this system, that leads to the tough questions, doesn't it? About the warnings.
Right, the intersection of the science, the communication, and the public response.
What does this disaster tell us about how people were warned? Maybe weren't warned effectively enough?
It's a critical question, and the official record shows warnings did go out. The National Weather Service, NWS, issued a flood watch for Kerr County Thursday afternoon.
Okay, I'll watch first.
Yeah, about 1:10 p.m., predicting maybe up to 7 inches locally. Then the high-res forecast model started showing increasing risk late Thursday night, July 3rd.
So the picture is getting worse.
It was. Thunderstorms fired up around 1:00 a.m. Friday, July 4th. And the first flash flood warning went out just after 1:00 a.m. That should have triggered the emergency alerts on cell phones.
The WEA alerts.
Right. Then, crucially, at 4:03 a.m., it was upgraded to a flash flood emergency.
Which is the highest level.
The absolute highest. The language is stark, extremely dangerous and life-threatening situation, urgent evacuation advised. And by 4:20 a.m., the river gauge at Hund hit major flood stage.
So the NWS timeline seems clear. High-level alerts went out before the worst hit.
Technically, yes.
Yet, we hear state and local officials like Nim Kidd at TDM, Judge Rob Kelly in Kerr County, saying things like they had no reason to believe it would be this bad, that the forecasts weren't specific enough. How do you square that? Is it misinterpretation? Are the warnings not granular enough? Or is something else breaking down between the alert being sent and people actually understanding the threat?
That's really the core of the blame game, as you put it earlier. And it's not simple. It's layered. What's really striking are the practical hurdles in getting those warnings to people and getting them acted upon.
Okay, like what?
Well, first, the timing. Overnight, most people are asleep, reaction times are slower, maybe phones are on silent.
Sure, big factor.
Second, infrastructure. Rural areas like Kerr County, they don't have outdoor warning sirens like you might see in tornado-prone areas.
No sirens for floods, even in Flash Flood Alley.
Apparently not. The idea had been discussed before, but it was dismissed. Too expensive, the cost would fall on local taxpayers, and there was pushback. The public apparently reeled at the price tag.
So a key warning tool wasn't available.
Correct. Then think about the campers. Camp Mystic. Lots of kids. Did they have phones? Was there cell service out there? Probably limited for many, so those wireless emergency alerts might not have reached them.
Right, reception can be spotty.
And then there's this broader issue, an official mentioned it, alert fatigue.
Yeah. Too many alerts.
Exactly. Apparently, Texas has frequent blue alerts for missing persons, etc. Important, yes. But some people get tired of the noise and turn off all emergency alerts,
Including the weather ones.
including the potentially life-saving weather ones.
Right.
So you see, it's not just if a warning is issued. It's about whether it's received, understood, and acted upon in that critical window.
Which brings us right into that difficult intersection of the disaster itself and, well, politics and preparedness. Where does this specific event fit into the bigger national conversation about funding, about readiness for these kinds of disasters?
It definitely throws a harsh spotlight on it. You had the Trump administration activating FEMA. The president offered condolences.
Standard response.
Standard response, yes. But it immediately brought up questions about past statements, proposals to cut funding for climate research, for NOAA, for the NWA, the very agencies doing the forecasting.
Right. The link between research and forecast accuracy.
Exactly. Rick Spinrad, former NOAA director, made that point explicitly. Less research funding means less accurate predictions down the line, which impacts everyone's ability to prepare. That's the federal angle.
And it's at the state level.
At the state level in Texas, just this year, lawmakers didn't pass House Bill 13.
What would that have done?
It aimed to set up a statewide plan to improve disaster response. Critically, it included a grant program for counties to build new emergency communication infrastructure.
Like sirens.
Like outdoor warning sirens, yes. The very thing Kerr County lacked.
And the local representative.
Wes Verbel, freshman Republican representing Kerr County. He said afterwards his vote probably be different now. Hindsight.
Wow, why didn't it pass? Cost.
Cost was a factor, about $500 million over 10 years. But there was also debate about the bill itself. Critics argued the grants were mostly for planning studies, not immediate implementation or response capability.
So disagreements on the approach, not just the money.
Right. It wasn't a simple yes or no on funding. It was about how best to spend it, the timeline, the scope. But the end result was the initiative stalled. And now this happens. It really forces a hard look at those decisions, balancing budget concerns against long-term investment and safety.
So looking at the bigger picture now.
Yeah.
Recovery on the ground. What does that look like? And what are the lessons, maybe the uncomfortable ones, that we need to take away from this?
Well, the immediate picture is just devastation along the Guadalupe. Homes destroyed, trees down, furniture, fences, power lines everywhere. It's a massive cleanup job, even before rebuilding can start.
And the impact goes beyond Kerr County, right?
Oh, absolutely. Down in the Rio Grande Valley, 4 deaths there. Hidalgo County saw over 21 inches of rain. Huge losses for agriculture crops, livestock. Power outages hit thousands. Transportation was snarled. Valley International Airport closed for a time.
And it even crossed the border.
It did. Tamaulipas State in Mexico was also impacted. These events really show how interconnected everything is, physically and economically. Recovery is going to be long. It's rebuilding homes, businesses, infrastructure. But it's also the psychological toll.
Yeah, that's huge.
On survivors, on the first responders who saw things nobody should see, and the economic strain on communities trying to get back on their feet.
But amidst all that, you also see the community response.
Yeah.
People stepping up.
You always do, and it's incredible. You mentioned Alma Garcia driving from San Antonio with meals, Perla collecting clothes after her Walmart shift. That grassroots help is immediate and powerful.
Yeah.
And established groups are there too. Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country, Convoy of Hope, Mercy Chefs, Salvation Army, Texar Search and Rescue. They're all doing vital work.
It's inspiring.
Yeah.
But it also feels like it shouldn't just be up to volunteers and charity, right?
Yeah.
It highlights the need for better systems.
That's exactly the point. That community spirit is essential. It fills immediate gaps. It boosts morale. But it can't replace robust, reliable, well-funded government systems for preparedness, warning, and response.
So where do things stand now on that front? Any movement?
Well, Governor Abbott declared Sunday a day of prayer.
Yeah.
Pope Leo XIV offered prayers too. That spiritual support matters to many.
Sure.
On the practical side, local officials are saying, yes, once the immediate crisis passes, we have to talk about improving warning systems, communication. Governor Abbott has sort of left the door open for future legislation on warnings.
But not now.
Not in the current special session, no. So the core issue is how to fund these systems, how to implement them effectively, how to ensure people get and heed the warnings. That remains a political challenge. A hot potato. Really.
Even after this.
Even after this. The fundamental question for Texas, and honestly for the whole country, is how do we take the incredibly painful lessons from a tragedy like this and turn them into real, sustained action on preparedness? Action that lasts even when the floodwaters recede and the headlines fade.
Natural disasters may be unavoidable, but the scale of their destruction often isn't. The question now is,
Will we learn from this, or wait for it to happen again? Thanks for listening to the 8 Digital Podcast. If this story moved you, share it and talk about it. Awareness is the first step toward accountability. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories that cut through the noise and get to the heart of what really matters. Until then, stay safe and stay alert.